Hi guys, Grace here. Today I'd just like to share with you a new watercolor journal that I picked up recently. I reside in Singapore, so this is found at a local art supply shop known as Overjoyed. And I got this for Sing dollars, $10.90. So I was very interested as to what the quality would be like, as it is quite it's on the more affordable side for watercolor journals. The size of this sketchbook is 130 mm by 190 mm, so it's slightly smaller than a full A5. For comparison, here is my Leuchtturm. This is a full A5. As you can see, it is both smaller lengthwise and widthwise. So it's a pretty portable size, and I quite enjoy the size of it as well. This is just a plain black hardcover, and with just a normal elastic band on the outside. On the first page, this is not watercolor paper yet. This is just to hold the book to the hardcover. So this is just all the information that was originally on the outside with the plastic cover for the whole book. And this is the Kuelox Watercolour Notebook. I'm not sure if I'm pronouncing that right, so I'm sorry about that. This has 24 pages of 300 GSM watercolor paper. So even though it's only 24 pages in that sense, it is still pretty thick, as you can tell. Yeah. And 24 pages means that if you draw on both sides of the paper, and if you draw like one here and one here, you can actually draw 48 scenes or characters or whatever you like to draw. This is in Chinese, and it says 面浆中出无蒜. Mianjiang means that there is cotton content. So some places actually advertise it as 100% cotton, but I am just a little bit skeptical. In Singapore, 100% cotton is pretty expensive most of the time. So, like for example, the Labs 100% cotton sketchbooks, those can go up to like $40, $50 depending on the size. So, I am not sure if it was such a good deal for me to get 100% cotton at $10, but it does feel like there is cotton content. I just cannot be sure what the exact percentage is. Next, 中粗, the direct translation would mean that it's medium texture. So to me, this feels like a cold press. So there is a little bit of texture. It's not hot press, but neither is it too rough to draw, like say with pen or ink on it, and it doesn't feather out like a lot, so it's quite comfortable to still draw on. So I think it is leaning towards a nice cold press. Finally, 无酸 just means that it's acid free, so that's a good thing for sketchbooks as always. So this is the first page of watercolor paper in this book, and this is just, I just like to do a swatch of the paints that I'm currently using on the first page all the time. So this is just the Daniel Smith colors that I have. The first row is the Daniel Smith, if I'm not wrong, it's the Essential set. So just 6 tubes, 5 ml tubes of primary colors, and you get one warm and one cool of each of yellow, red, and blue. And then for the last row, these are just the Primatech, also the 5 ml starter set. I got it for a good price, so I just couldn't resist, even though I was spending a little bit too much of watercolor recently. So I really love the texture of hematite, and then the rest also look pretty nice. And in the center, this row is just a few other colors that I had, and it looked quite random, but I do like the colors quite a bit. So especially Quingo, Ultramarine Turquoise, and Shadow Violet. At the very last row, the larger rectangles here, these I actually tried a wet on wet technique, especially for the more granulating colors. So I tried it for rhodonite, jadeite, shadow violet, and Mayan blue. I didn't do a very good job, as I wasn't sure how well this paper would take like a wash of water. But the jadeite, you can see that the granulation is very nice. Rhodonite, I added a bit too much water, so I had to like soak it off. So there's a very distinct line here, but you still can see the granulation. And overall, I think the paper handled it like pretty well. So far, I've only drawn like a few scenes, and these are just the first two. As you can see, I'm not very good. I just like to draw quick, very quick, and they may not be the most accurate perspective-wise or color-wise, but I just enjoy drawing as a hobby, so I hope you don't mind that. And these are just some of the places that I've been to recently and just wanted to try drawing and painting in this book. So this is something that I drew yesterday, and we were just passing by this row of colorful shop houses along Samyong Road, and I chose this scene and took a picture to come back and draw it because of this shop house. I really wanted to use my ultramarine turquoise by itself. Usually I have to mix it to tone it down a bit, as this is not a color that you can find easily in nature. So I was very happy, or more like excited, just to use the color by itself, and I think it looks quite nice here. So as you can also see that my pictures do look like just slightly gloomy. It's just been raining a lot in Singapore, so this was when it was drizzling. So you can see a little bit of an overcast, so that's why the colors are a bit duller. I tried to color match as the best that I could, and this was just before it started raining. So you can see like it's quite, I drew the sky quite dark, and this was one of the rare sunny days, but I still messed up a little bit. The shadows don't seem right, so it still looked a little bit gloomy. So for the notebook itself, it handled water quite well. There is just a little bit of warping. You can see the paper is no longer exactly flat, especially I drew on both sides. But once you close it up, you put like some heavy books on it or just leave it for a while and it's fine. I'm not bothered by it at all when I drew this. It doesn't, once you lay it flat like that, you can see that, you know, the warping is not really going to get in your way. Another thing I really love about this is how flat it lays. So even this is only the third page, but I can still, you know, draw very comfortably without the paper, like, you know, not laying flat. One of the cons of this is that this is stitch bound, so no matter what, there will be holes where they put the thread through. So with this, especially with a 2-page spread, the water does seep through a little bit through the seams. So but it is also slightly my fault. I used a little bit too much water here, so it seeped through here, but it didn't seep through here. So this place, I didn't use that much water, it's fine. And this one, I put a little bit too much water and it just went through. But I'm also not too bothered. I think this happens with all stitch-bound notebooks, especially when you're using a liquid medium like watercolor. The next thing is that between signatures, I do understand that when bookbinding, they have to use a little bit of glue, especially with such thick 300 GSM paper to hold everything together. So there is a little bit of tearing, but I'm also okay with that. You know, for $10, I can't really complain, and the paper is really nice to work with. So no complaints there. I can also just draw like 2 different scenes and just not use this as a 2-page spread. But when you go into the signature, it's completely fine. It's very nice and flat. At the end, there is just a simple back pocket, paper pocket. There is a QR code if you need more information. I haven't tried the link, so I can't tell you what they have there, but maybe I'll try after. And finally, on just the very last page, I just tested a little bit with alcohol markers. This is just one layer, so I didn't go over it like 2-3 times just to get like full saturation. But one layer is completely fine. It doesn't bleed at all on the other page. So this is really nice, thick 300 GSM paper. But I do believe, it is alcohol markers after all. So once you put a few more layers, it will definitely seep through. But one layer is fine. So if you want to do some mixed media with alcohol markers and watercolor, you can also do so with just a light wash of your markers. So that's all I have for you today. This is the Kuelox Watercolour Notebook. If you do like it, I hope you like it. I think it's a good place to start for beginners. It's quite an affordable price compared to actual labs where you have to spend like $30-40 to get started, or you simply like to have a easy to carry portable sketchbook that you can use watercolors in easily as well. So that's all for today. Thank you and goodbye.